A man was ill, Lazarus from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who had anointed the Lord with perfumed oil and dried his feet with her hair. It was her brother Lazarus who was ill. So the sister sent word to Jesus, saying, "Master, the one you love is ill." When Jesus heard this, he said, "This illness is not to end in death, but is for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was ill, he remained for 2 days in the place where he was. Then after this he said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Jews were just trying to stone you, and you want to go back there?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours in a day? If one walks during the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if one walks at night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him." He said this and then told them, "Our friend Lazarus is asleep, but I am going to awaken him." So the disciples said to him, "Master, if he is asleep, he will be saved." But Jesus was talking about his death, while they thought that he meant ordinary sleep. So then Jesus said to them clearly, "Lazarus has died, and I am glad for you that I was not there, that you may believe. Let us go to him." So Thomas, called Didymus, said to his fellow disciples, "Let us also go to die with him." When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, only about 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary sat at home. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise." Martha said to him, "I know he will rise in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus told her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord. I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who is coming into the world." When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary secretly, saying, "The teacher is here and is asking for you." As soon as she heard this, she rose quickly and went to him. For Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still where Martha had met him. So when the Jews who were with her in the house comforting her saw Mary get up quickly and go out, they followed her, presuming that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her weeping, he became perturbed and deeply troubled and said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Sir, come and see." And Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could not the one who opened the eyes of the blind man have done something so that this man would not have died?" So Jesus, perturbed again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay across it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the dead man's sister, said to him, "Lord, by now there will be a stench. He has been dead for 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Do Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. And Jesus raised his eyes and said, Father, I thank you for hearing me. I know that you always hear me, but because of the crowd here I have said this, that they may believe that you sent me. And when he had said this, he cried out in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out! The dead man came out, tied hand and foot with burial cloths, and his face was wrapped in a cloth. So Jesus said to them, untie him and let him go. Now many of the Jews who had come to Mary and seen what he had done began to believe in him. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Death is inescapable and absolute for human beings. It is the defining reality of our existence. Experiences vary, histories are often unique, but our final end is universal and complete. To exist is to face annihilation. It's simply the way things are in this world. Such was the meaning of Martha's words to Jesus. Lord, by now there will be a stench. She has been dead 4 days. In the face of this reality, there is nothing anyone can ultimately do but seal off death, forestall it, putting as much distance between it and you. Death is the great emblem of mankind's fragility. It's the embodiment of our weakness. It's the source from which flows all our fears, as well as our greatest sorrows and lamentations. At the death of Lazarus, the Jews wept. Mary wept. And Jesus did too, or at least so it seems. Notice how Jesus was described as perturbed, as deeply moved in spirit, not when news came of Lazarus' illness or his death, but when he saw Mary and the Jews weeping. And then again when he came to the tomb and was told by Martha about death's absolute power. There will be a stench. He's dead. What are you doing, Lord? Death didn't perturb Jesus. For goodness sakes, he waited for 2 days after he heard the news before he set off to see Lazarus. Death wasn't the source of Jesus' spiritual disturbance. The absence of belief in the one who came from the Father was. Father, I thank you for hearing me. I know that you always hear me, but because of the crowd here, I have said this, that they may believe that you sent me. This truth has been captured in a marvelous way by the original words of the gospel, which are rendered as weeping and wept in English. But for the Jews and Mary, the original verb is klaio, and for Jesus it's dakruo. You can hear it, can't you, the difference? Klaio for Mary and the Jews, it's the ordinary word used to describe weeping, wailing, and lamenting. It's not just the shedding of tears, but also every external expression of grief. It's man's typical reaction towards death. Dakruo for Jesus has to do with shedding a tear over everyone's lack of belief. Martha, Mary, and all the Jews. Martha frankly expressed her belief in Christ's powerlessness in the face of death. There will be a stench, Lord. Mary and the Jews wept because of death's finality. But what has power over human beings does not have power over Jesus Christ. Now think about what this means. Death is the great symbol of our fragility. But death is not what perturbs Jesus. Death and all that it symbolizes are not definitive. Our weaknesses, our failings, and our shortcomings are not the primary obstacles to Jesus. He did not weep over death, but shed a tear over unbelief. Did I not tell you that if you would believe, you would see the glory of God? Failings do not define us. Even the failing of death does not define us, if faith does. So don't be discouraged by them. Lazarus has died, and I am glad for your sake that I was not there, that you may believe. Look, even human death, even our death, and all that it represents can serve to overcome what is final to us. What a paradox. Like the man born blind last week, so the dead man this week, God works through our fragility to bring about immortality by way of faith in Jesus Christ. What is our weakness becomes strength in him. But remember, faith is not something static. In John's gospel, the word believer, faith, is used 98 times, but it's never once used as a noun. Every time belief is used, it's always used as a verb. Belief is not something static. It's not something you possess like you possess a car or a house or a dog. Belief is dynamic, a movement, if you will, which is rooted in the conviction that God can be trusted, come what may, as was made visible in the person of Jesus Christ. It's a participation in the event of Jesus Christ, which opened this world to the divine. Friends, in a world understandably afraid and concerned with distancing itself from death, continue to walk in the day, in the light, as you are doing, and do so even more. What light shines in you as you stop by the church to pray, as I've seen so many of you do? What faith is manifested as you continue to find food for the poor in the midst of scarcity? Look how you are inspiring others with selflessness when the pandemic pushes us towards self-concern. Look how hope is kindled when you reach out to those feeling forgotten. Death clearly is no longer the defining reality of human beings, as can be seen so clearly in you who believe. Part of the reason why I chose the option that I did, that the church lists for us, of celebrating Mass ad orientem, I viewed part of a streaming Mass last week with the camera right in front of the priest, and I thought, wow, that's really awkward. It's for that reason, but also I find it the most compelling option for participating in that event that reaches out to eternity, opens the door of the divine. What's helpful for us is if you hit that subscribe button that can unlock certain services from YouTube. You could also share this with your friends. It shouldn't be too hard of a sell. Wow, I found a priest who doesn't even take up a collection. You gotta check this out. Please know that I am praying for all of you.